But Josh, I want you on NVIDIA here. Stock's up 18.5% just this week alone. Your thoughts on this stock, which is now up 35% from that low of Monday?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's incredible to have one of the 5 largest market caps in the world also be one of the highest beta names. This stock, a lot of the day-to-day movement, a lot of the intraday stuff too, it's its own casino. If you look at the amount of 0 days till expiration option volume happening in NVIDIA every day, if you look at weekly options activity, there are people betting on the next $2 up or down in this stock at any given second. And the volumes, we're talking about billions of dollars worth of options activity. And I say that to make the point, not everything taking place on your screen is a nod to the fundamental situation of NVIDIA or AI spend or tech in general. Not every even 10% move up or down has any meaning at all and can be reversed in seconds. It's really important to make a decision right now. Are you an investor in NVIDIA? And if so, can you tune out that intraday, 3-day, 5-day volatility? If you're a trader, it's different. If you're a trader, you're having a lot of fun. You can be long and short inside of the same day. But I think for most of our viewers, they're not looking for that kind of action. And so the best thing to have done with NVIDIA all year is not get carried away every time the stock lurches higher or lower.
To you. First up, we've got NVIDIA rallying above a key level today and extending a 4-day win streak, up nearly 20% this week. Your trade on that beloved stock.
On that beloved stock, Tyler, I'm going to tell you to buy it cautiously. If you don't own it, you've got to wade into that water. This is the hottest area of the market. As long as the race for AI and this battle to continue to create AI continues, this stock's going to do well. They're still looking for like 40% growth in earnings from this company over the next 5 years. It's gone from 48 times earnings, 2024 earnings, to 34 times next year and coming down with this large earnings growth. So it's performed beautifully well. It's a cyclical area. It probably has a few years left, but the AI impetus that's driving those earnings, I think, can take this stock higher, even at a $3 trillion market cap.
So if you want to establish a position, this is a dollar cost average in.
I think so. I mean, this is if you have a blank in this space, I would want to have a position. It doesn't have to be a full position, and it has to be in keeping with your investment discipline and philosophy. So it can't be an appropriate risk for your portfolio. Check with your advisor.
Seema, you can't tell the story of the market this week without focusing on the chips.
Yeah, you really can't, Scott. Sentiment turned during a short period of time. Just 2 weeks ago, there was a report about a Blackwell delay from NVIDIA, and we saw not only NVIDIA, but other chip stocks fall. But then it took a couple days for analysts across Wall Street to quickly acknowledge the fact that a 3-month delay won't have an incremental effect on earnings because the demand for their current graphic processing unit, Hopper, H100, is still seeing strong demand. And despite AMD showing some level of competition, there really isn't another player that can steal market share from NVIDIA as we approach earnings on the 28th. We're looking at NVIDIA shares just this week up over 17%. This is the best week since May of last year, and it's lifting the broader semiconductor sector and the ETFs that track these stocks.
Wow. NVIDIA earnings later this month. What are we expecting here? Have expectations been tempered? Is the bar a little bit lower going into them?
I think it's going to be a drop to mic in terms of August 28th. Probably the most important earnings that we've seen maybe even the last 4 or 5 years from any company, because when the godfather of AI, Jensen, speaks, that's the best barometer for what we see in terms of spending. But we just got back from Asia. We are continuing to see demand accelerate. And I think that is very important because as we go into year end, we think tech rips higher. And that's why it's our view, we will still see that NASDAQ 20,000, as we go into early 2025.
When you say demand rip higher in Asia, are you talking about China or are you talking about elsewhere?
I'm talking about broader, what we're seeing from the supply chain, what that's showing on the chip perspective. It goes back to the growth scare. We just focus on what demand looks like. And if you look at NVIDIA, you could, we saw from Microsoft, the broader cloud players, the Massive AI, Palantir, all the breadcrumbs now, ServiceNow, it's showing acceleration from an AI perspective. And I think that is something the street is still underestimating relative to numbers, which is why, in my opinion, it's still the time, table pound, to own our winners in tech, despite many of the bears coming out of hibernation mode over the last, call it, week and a half, 2 weeks.
Okay, we just covered a lot of ground, but we haven't covered the hyperscalers. Are those a buy right now, or is it some of these other areas that are benefiting from AI that we just talked about?
I mean, I think when you look at you look at especially Microsoft and what Nadella has done, and then you look even now with Google as they're benefiting significantly, you look at Amazon, that is the key to the next layer of AI. And that's why I think when you look at that basket, you have to look front and center at Microsoft. We believe a year from now, $3-4 trillion market caps. It's Microsoft, godfather of AI, Jensen, NVIDIA, and then, of course, Apple with Cupertino and that AI-driven supercycle.
All right, welcome back to Fast Money. Semiconductors surging. They had their best week since March of 2023. Random stats for 400, Alex. The SMH ETF gaining almost 10% since Monday. While every member of the fund was up, NVIDIA, who else, led the gains, rising nearly 19%. Intel actually managed a gain, but only about 5%. Although if you're an Intel shareholder, Tim, you're probably happy that Intel went up at all at this point. Your take on this massive snapback, an 18% jump for NVIDIA?
Yeah, and no comment on the Intel shareholder front, by the way, Brian. When I look at the move in semis, again, if you take that intraday low on Black Monday in Japan, on August 5, they're up about 23%. I would, again, go back to when they peaked, which was July 11th, right before that CPI number. And that was a wake-up call for the broadening of the market. It was a wake-up call for rotation. It was a wake-up call for, hey, do these valuations really make sense? And NVIDIA certainly has performed fine in line. But I think that's really part of the backdrop here. Are they going to continue to provide that leadership? Remember, as long as semis were outperforming Qs, which were outperforming SPYs, that was a formula for a year and a half that told you markets were going higher. Right now, that jury is still out. AMD, as I've tried to point out a couple times, because I just think that the relative underperformance there has been notable, if nothing else. A case where I think investors have been at least questioning whether the product line is ready for prime time, and the dynamic that over 6 months, it's underperformed the SMH by 35%, even though the snapback trade, it's held serve against the entire sector.
Well, Tim, what do you think's wrong with AMD?
I just think it's a dynamic where people question whether they really have the growth in the product line that can begin to encroach upon the moat that NVIDIA has. And again, a valuation that, at least on a trailing basis, is 177 times. We don't really know where the multiple is going forward. We do know that the earnings, as I think Eric even pointed this out, the jury's still really out whether these companies can live up to those multiples here.
Mike Coe, your take on semiconductors? I mean, just an incredible snapback today.
You know, I'm reminded a little bit of what happened in the outset, essentially, of the tech wreck. I'm not going to compare what's going on right now to then. We have companies that are actually really growing and are making real money. But I think it's important to remember that as the crack started to emerge that time, one of the things we started to see was this kind of increase in volatility, both downside and upside. Right now, the SMH is what, 246-ish? That's, give or take off about $30 off of the all-time highs that we saw earlier this year. It's cheaper, but it certainly isn't cheap. And I don't think we're completely out of the woods, as Tim was suggesting here. I think we have some more volatility ahead, and I don't think this is a rally that you want to chase, actually.
All right, I hope you're all having a great weekend. I wanted to make sure that you all had access to the clips you just watched, and now I'm going to recap some of what I said in yesterday's video in case you missed it, because not much has changed between yesterday and today. So yesterday, the S&P finished up roughly 0.2%, and NVIDIA closed up 1.4% on the day. As I've been saying for a while now, NVIDIA's price action between now and earnings on August 28th will be largely dependent on the rest of the market. If the market can simply remain calm between now and then and not have any more frantic drawdowns like we've seen the past couple of weeks, then I think NVIDIA has more room to move higher. So with that in mind, I want to address something regarding the rest of the market. I think this past week we witnessed a short-term positive sentiment shift. So yesterday morning we got housing data, and I'll be completely honest, it was not good. U.S. housing starts came in nearly 100,000 less than expected. Housing starts month over month were expected to be negative 1.5%, and instead they were negative 6.8%. And building permits came in worse than expected as well. So if market participants are worried about fears of recession, then this data would cause the market to trade lower, right? Well, I think we have a temporary positive sentiment shift on our hands. Yes, the market initially traded lower yesterday morning in pre-market, but then after market open, the market just shook the housing data off as if it wasn't that big of a deal. And then shortly thereafter, we got consumer sentiment data that was better than expected. So I think market participants are temporarily putting their fears of recession on hold and are instead focusing their attention ahead to Jackson Hole next Friday, where Fed Chair Jerome Powell is scheduled to speak, and then ultimately looking ahead to the next FOMC meeting in September in anticipation of Fed rate cuts. That seems to have been the main focus of the market at the end of this past week, brushing off the negative economic data in the short term and instead focusing ahead on Jackson Hole next Friday, FOMC in September, and NVIDIA's upcoming earnings report on August 28th. There are still very real risks to the market: potential recession, unwinding of the carry trade as the Bank of Japan raises rates, conflicts abroad, and the list goes on. So we're not out of the woods yet. There are still risks to the market. I'm just saying that for right now, or at least as of yesterday, many market participants have shifted their focus ahead to Jackson Hole this coming Friday. Now I want to briefly talk about NVIDIA's chart. So there have been a lot of positive developments, as I've mentioned in recent videos. On the 4-hour time frame, we have very clearly broken above the 180-day moving average. On the daily time frame, we recently had a cross on the MACD, and we have a clear move above the 50-day moving average, which is very encouraging to see. The 50-day MA is the purple line on your screen, and this moving average on the daily time frame is a very powerful indicator. Looking ahead, we are approaching this resistance trend line. Typically, we would want to see a break above a trend line like this on the 4th touch of the trend line. So will we temporarily get rejected at this trend line, or will we just break through it right away? I don't know what the future holds, but here is what I think about both scenarios as of now. If we get rejected at this upper trend line, then I would like to see NVIDIA come back down to the 50-day MA on the daily time frame, retest it as support, and then move higher from there to retest the upper trend line once again. Now, the second scenario would be that we just break above the trend line sooner rather than later. While I typically would not expect something like that to happen, the reality of the situation is that excitement surrounding NVIDIA is growing rapidly because many market participants expect NVIDIA to report a very strong quarter on August 28th. So it is possible that we could break above the trend line sooner rather than later. Will we get rejected at this upper trend line before heading higher, or will we just slice right through it? Time will tell. Next week, the market will be focused on Fed minutes on Wednesday, initial jobless claims, and PMI on Thursday, and especially Powell's speech at Jackson Hole on Friday. The market will be watching Powell like a hawk this coming Friday, listening in for any indication of a Fed rate cut in September. So the morning of this coming Friday could be volatile as Powell is speaking. If the rest of the market can simply remain calm between now and NVIDIA's earnings, then I think NVIDIA has more room to run in anticipation. However, if something happens this week that causes market participants to start feeling skittish again, then that could weigh down on NVIDIA in the short term. Long term, I am bullish on the future of NVIDIA as more hyperscalers like Amazon, Meta, Microsoft, and Alphabet increase capex spending on AI by billions of dollars. Even if Blackwell is delayed, that does not concern me regarding NVIDIA's long-term future. If there is a delay in Blackwell, then NVIDIA can just sell more H100 GPUs in the interim because demand is so great right now, and they would likely just guide higher for future quarters in which they expect Blackwell to ship in volume. In the short term, I don't know what's in store. Anything could happen. Long term, though, I am very optimistic about the future of NVIDIA. With all of that being said, I hope you all have a great weekend, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts about NVIDIA in the comments below. Please leave a like on this video so more people will see it. And while you're down there, please consider subscribing. It's free, and you can always change your mind. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.